Welcome everybody. We're just going to take a minute for folks to filter in and then we'll begin. Okay, so a warm welcome to everyone joining us today to hear from our CPT Iraqi Kurdistan team on the nonviolent resistance to the cross-border bombings. We'd love to know who you are and where you're joining us from, so please feel free to put that in the chat box so that we can see that. Myself, I'm Alicia, and I'm the development coordinator at Christian Peacemaker Teams. I'm a former Palestine team member, and I'm joining you today from Chicago. I just want to do a little housekeeping before we get started here shortly. So we are going to have space for questions and answers today, and we invite you to please put your questions in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. The good thing about putting it in there also is that we're going to dedicate some time after this webinar to getting to the questions we're not able to get to in this space and answering them directly. So we'll be able to send you an answer to your questions if you put them in the Q&A box. And I will also paste a link, peacemakers@cpt.org, which is our email address, and you can feel free to email us at any time if you have questions. So for those of you who don't know us, Christian Peacemaker Teams, or CPT, is an organization that trains everyday people to work in local peacemaking communities that are confronting situations of lethal conflict. And we partner with those communities to transform violence and oppression. And you can find out more about us at cpt.org, and I will paste that link in the chat box shortly. And now I just want to give you a brief background on the CPT Iraqi Kurdistan team, who you're going to be hearing from today. So from 2002 until 2006, CPT was based in Baghdad and worked in central and southern regions of Iraq, documenting the impacts of war on civilians and supporting the alternative Iraqi nonviolence movements and initiatives for peace. Since 2006, the team has worked within a portion of ancestral Kurdish homelands located in what is now northern Iraq. And they work alongside civil society activists and minority groups facing discrimination, as well as documenting and accompanying villages affected by the Turkish and Iranian cross-border bombings. And that's what you're going to be hearing about today. And now I'd like to introduce you to our CPT Iraqi Kurdistan team members, Mohammed, who is joining us from Kurdistan, and Chris, and he'll be helping with the photos today and joining us from Washington State, and also Lukash, who is the team program support coordinator, joining us from Colombia, and I'm going to hand over to them.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you everyone for joining us today on this webinar. As Alicia mentioned, our work in Iraqi Kurdistan started in 2006, and who you see now today here, we are part of our team. We are 7 members coming from different countries, from Iraqi Kurdistan, from USA, from Australia, and from Czech Republic. We also have some volunteers that are joining us from different countries around the world. And it's a great pleasure today to share with you about our work and especially the work of our partners in the areas that Turkey and Iran have been bombing for many, many years. I would like to invite Mohammed to share with us who are here about Kurdistan and the Kurdish people, and give us some introduction to the bombings.
Thank you so much, Lucas. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Chris, be here, and thank you everyone for watching us right now. I'm Mohammed. I'm a Kurdish from Iraqi Kurdistan, and maybe before we start to talk about the project we do, I would like to tell you about the Kurdish population, where are Kurdistan, and so for those who are not familiar about the Kurdish population in the Middle East. So very briefly, I would like to tell you some about my nations and the people who are called Kurdish here. So we as a Kurdish, and also Chris will help me to show us a map. And Thank you, Chris. And so on this map, as you see, this is a very pretty, colorful map. But when the Kurdish see this map, is very heartbreaking, because as you see, it shows how the Kurdish populations being divided between these 4 countries, as you see. And each yellow dot, it represents 1 million Kurdish who are living in those countries. As you see, the majority of Kurdish are living in Turkey. And also, as you see, about 5 million Kurds living in Iraq, which is the north of Iraq. And as I mentioned, this is very heartbreaking, because these divisions happened like more than a century ago by the superpower countries. And still, we as a Kurds, the biggest nations in the world without any country or any states, are living in the Middle East. These are also like, it shows that why there is always conflicts in this area, why there is always Kurdish are fighting and resisting for their nationality, for their lands, with Turkey, with Iran, with Iraq, with Syria. So it is because of this reason, as you see it now. And I really like to invite you to educate more yourself, to go to find out more by yourself. There are lots of the article and reports about the Kurdish populations in the Middle East. Actually, I would like to ask Chris to take us to Iraqi Kurdistan. Maybe the next map. Thank you, Chris. So this is Iraqi Kurdistan. This is the north of Iraq. As you see, it is, we are border with Iran and Turkey. And as you see, the color of the city. So the green one is the city of Suleimani, which is, I am from that city. And also the CPT office, or the CPT IK team, is also located in Suleimani. And also, as you see, there is Erbil, kind of in the middle of the region. That is the capital of the region. And you see Duhok as well. Coming back towards Suli, and you see Halabja. So now Halabja is become the 4th, let's say, province or governor in the KRG. And also we have some like district around. So the color, which is each represent different political party, but what I want to mention is the orange one. As you see, it's with the border with Iran and Turkey. So that is show us the existence of the PKK in that area. And just to let you know, PKK is the group of armed resistant groups, which is, or one of them, or let's say the biggest one of the armed resistance groups, who are fighting against the oppressions of the Turkish states, Iran states, against the Kurds. And they are mostly located in that area because it is very, very deep mountains, valley area, which is, it's very hard for those countries to be able to control those areas. So that is the mountains, which is, we can say it's like a cage, or like it's a place for those resistance to born and to fight against those countries. And we as a Kurdish, we say that, we have a famous saying, we say that only the mountains are our friends, or our best friends. And that is because of many reasons, because always the Kurdish revolutions, armed resistance groups been organized themselves in those deep mountains. And so in 2007, when I joined CPT, I learned also a lot about the border bombing. So the border bombing, when we say like Turkey and Iran bombing those areas, because their excuse is the existence of PKK. But at the same time, there are villagers, there are innocent people who live in those areas. And the biggest impact of those border bombing is the villagers, that the civilians are paying that. So yeah, thank you, Chris. So this is the image for the mountain, what it look like. So yeah, like we learned about, from the beginning of CPT, we learned about the border bombing. And I, as a Kurdish also, because I was hearing on news about the border bombing. So I was imagining maybe it's just like a area of war. But when we went to the area, and like we mostly go to the mountains and to meet with people and to talk with them. And through that, we built partnership with those people, with those villagers, and accompany them. And because the existence of CPT is very important here. Like I mentioned Halabja, the city, and Halabja being bombed by Saddam regime at that time in 1988. And Saddam at that time very easily convinced the international community that Iran did that. And that was very easy. And the international community, they choose to be silent about it. And because they were supporting Saddam at that time. So now what's happening on the border, there are no organization, there are no international media to document those oppressions, those killing those people by Turkey and Iran, and to tell the world the truth. And CPT is trying to do that. CPT is amplifying the voices of those villagers to let the world know that there are innocent people are being killed, there are innocent people are being displaced, there are innocent people are being injured and lost their land. So that is the role of CPT here. And this is how we accompany with the villagers. Yes, so I don't know, Lucas, do you want to add more or say something else here?
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank
And as you saw on the map, it doesn't show kilometers, but the area of the Turkish border is around 360 kilometers, so about over 200 miles, and then also a part of the Iranian border. So there are the villages we speak about are spread over this vast territory that takes about 5 to 6 hours to drive from one side to the other side, and that we are talking about driving along the mountains, because the border mountains, many of the villages are at the end of the road. So you drive through roads that first are paved, but then stop being paved in many situations, and then you enter, and this is where there are only villages, and then many bases of Turkey. Also, there are Iranian bases on the border with Kurdistan, but also and so we are talking about hundreds of villages, hundreds, and dozens of thousands of people that are impacted in those bombings. And recently, Turkey began to bomb also further away from the border. So last year, Turkish drones killed 2 people right next to Suleimani, which is a city of almost 1 million people, very far away from the border. They bomb also in a Camp Mahmur that is about 150, 200 kilometers from the Turkish border. And so the bombings are also spreading, and in the last 3 years, they have been escalating more and more. Maybe, Chris, could you please show us the map of one of the houses to show a little bit more what it looks like. And CPT, since 2007, as Mohammed said, have been documenting those impacts of the bombings. This is one of the houses where four cousins were celebrating Kurdish Nauruz, biggest Kurdish festival of the year. And while they were having barbecue outside of the house, Turkish warplanes bombed the house and killed all 4 of them. One of them was a law student. They were around 19, 20, 21 years old. And so when we as CPT learned about it, we started to share about it with other people. And we are very glad that we can also share this with all of you today who are here with us. Mohammed, I would like to invite you, if you could share with us more about Dunya Rashid and her story and the story of her family. Mohammed, I think that you got muted. I'm sorry.
So sorry. Thank you, Lucas. So as we mentioned that we will share some stories here. Actually, one of them is about the girl. She was 19 years old. She was a high school student, and her name is Dunya Rashid. Dunya, the day before she killed by the Turkish, which is actually is very important to mention that sometime when we say the Iran and the Turkish bombardments, so it's not always coming from the warplane or jet or drones, because there are many Turkish bases inside Iraqi Kurdistan, and those bases are very close to the villages. So Dunya, as you see in the picture, she is one of the victims that's she killed by the Turkish military base close to her village. So 2 days before she killed, there were lots of bombardment around her village. So the field get in fire and orchard being like burned. So and then after 2 days, because the villagers, they really need to go to their lands close to their villages. They have garden, they have orchards there. So she, and with her family and the people from her village, they went to that area to harvest some kind of nuts. It's called kangar in Kurdish. So for harvesting kangar nuts. So, and it was in the middle of the day. So then, like it's very visible, like the Turkish military bases, they know who is moving around, who's going there, who's coming. There are kids, there are families. So while they were picking up the nuts, so they hear the noise of the motor or the rockets. So the first one was very close to them and the villages, but they were safe. But the second one hit Dunya Rashid and hits the crowd of the people and very close to Dunya Rashid. So Dunya was very, very badly got injured on her leg. So the villagers, they had to pick her up, and they have to come down all the way from the hill into the village, like and then they have to put her in a car and then drive from the village into the nearby town on a gravel road to be able to reach her to the hospital, to a clinic. And unfortunately, there are lack of medical supplies in those areas, like in the clinic. So they had to drive another hour to another bigger town to be able to take her to a bigger hospital and find a better treatment for her. But unfortunately, she died on the way. So that is very, very, very tragedy when you hear these stories. I remember when we went to the house, when her brother is telling us this story, and like maybe Chris, could you help me like to show us how the next picture when because it's very important. The Turkish soldiers, after the attack, they came down from their bases and they threatened the people that you should not tell anyone that we throw this mortar, as you see in the picture. And they threatened people to not take video and photos. And luckily, before they came down, there were some people remained there, and they could be able, and thanks for the smartphone and the technology, they could be able to take some photos. And they shared it with us, and as you see it here. Thank you, Chris. So then, so after we introduce ourselves about our work, our CPT, and it was very, very hard, like for the first time to go to meet the family, and they are in a funeral. So then, after we introduce ourselves, then they ask us to write a report about it, like to make a report about it. So this is the family, and this is their house. And as you see on the mountain, like behind that mountain, behind that cliff, the Turkish bases is there. And as you see, the woman with the black, that's Dunya's mother. Her name is Khalida. and the father is here, and there are the brothers and the sisters around. So they asked us to write a report about it, and they needed this report to submit it with a KRG, with the Kurdistan regional government, at the court to complain against Turkey and to show to the Turkish consulate that this is a report from an international organization, and they document that our daughter killed by the Turkish soldiers. And that's what they asked. And that's what we did as CPT. Like after a week, after the first visit, when we went back, we give them the report. And then the mother, when she saw the report and when she saw the picture of her daughter on the report, like she started to cry. And dunya in Kurdish, because every Kurdish names has a meaning. So dunya in English, it means world. So she said, my world died, my world died. And like, then she started to cry. Then the father, she has like to tell us that she's crying because she remembered those memories she had it. Yeah, so it's very hard for like how we can really support this family, how we can express our sorrow to the family. So yes, that is the story of Dunya Rashid, and that is what's happened to her. And still the family, we are having very good relations and connection with them, and they are our one of the great and best partners we have. Back to you, Lucas, if you want.
Thank you, Mohammed. I would like to share a story of Sabir and his family. We will just in a second. You can see this is Sabir. He is 19 years old in this photo. He comes from a family of shepherds that have been shepherds for generations. They have been grazing their sheep and goats in this area that is called Kielashin. It's a high mountain plateau surrounded by even higher mountains. This photo is taken in June, and that is a few months into the when the family has been there already that year. So there are many families in Kurdistan that, although they live in a village, but they live from what they produce, what the production and from the grazing and growing of the animals. They go in the springtime. They take all the sheep and goats, go up there to the mountains, here to Kielashin. And then they spend about 6 months there, and they produce yogurt, they produce cheese. Then a lot of the cheese is stored in caves underground to preserve itself. The animals are babies, so then when they come down, they live for the rest of the year from what they produced in the mountains. Kielashin is a region that is right on the Iranian border, and also very close to Turkish border. And Kielashin is one of those regions where both countries have been bombing people. So Turkey have been doing this from the airplanes, from drones. Recently they built military bases around there, and Iran has been doing the same, but with heavy artillery. Why is Iran doing that? It's because also that in the history there have been two and actually even a few more guerrilla groups that have been also fighting for the rights of Kurdish people in Iran, and they've been operating in this region. What you see is a black tent made of the skin of the goats, where the family stays. 1 year before we went, Iran shelled with the rockets the area with around 1,000 times during the summer months when the families were staying there. Sabir was injured in one of those bombings, and several shrapnel from the rocket went and hit his back. So the family put him into the car. He was unconscious. He was bleeding. They took several hours to drive him down from the mountain to the hospital. And the road there is almost no road. There are more like, it's like a path in the mountains for the cars. then it becomes gravel, then it becomes a road that is paved. Luckily, Sabir survived. Sabir and his family, they invited CPT to come and to make a video about what happened to them. And we hear from many of our partners who say, we feel very lonely here. Like we are in a place where we feel like nobody cares here about us. We are so far up in the mountains, there are fighting groups around us, there is bombing going on. And so one of the requests for CPT is to document, to amplify their voices, to tell people around the world what's going on. So when we were there, we were filming. They showed us pieces of the shrapnel, where the rocket hit, and we talked about their life. We spent the night in the tent with the family. We had a wonderful meal. We had wonderful conversations in the night, and as the dark was coming down, the family actually had they had just some small lamps, but then as it was getting later, they just turned off the lamps and they said, we cannot have any light on. And he said, because the Turkish airplanes and the drones, they're flying almost every night, and we are under threat to get hit. So in the morning, we walk around again, and then at some moment, at one moment, like something very strange happened, and it felt like the whole earth just shook our bodies as well, like inside, and we heard just like sound over our heads, and we just looked at each other and at our partners, and they said, Iran. So Iran just fired a rocket, and it's from that base that you can see over there. In a few seconds, the rocket exploded a few kilometers behind us on a mountain slope. It was the first time that I have been in the shelling of like this, and we started talking to each other about it, and also we could see in the eyes of our partners like in a way there is some fear from because it's like the rocket can fall anytime on their tent or on them being with the animals. At the same time, there is a lot of resilience and determination. They told us that they said, this is our land. Like, we are not leaving from here. We have been doing this for generations, from father to father and to father. And so it's a way of life that they have been living, practicing in those mountains. That is also it's their livelihood. It's what they live from. There's a lot of wisdom in how to take care of the sheep and goats, and how to live in these harsh mountains. And it was actually very cold in the night. Like we were sleeping under blankets, and it was really cold. And how to flourish as a family there. And so it was we also started understanding in that moment, and in many other times when we met with people that Turkey and Iran bombed, that Iran and Turkey, there is more than just strategy to get rid of people from the land, and just to create maybe created it as a battlefield, and a battlefield where then whichever war can happen. But there is much more, because through these bombings, a way of life that has been very ancient and going on for centuries and generations is getting eradicated and is disappearing from this world. And so also it is about this. It's not about it is about how people resist in a non-violent way, that they stay in their land, that they continue coming every year with their sheep and goats, that they rebuild the bombed houses, that they replant their fields. Sabir now, he's married. He actually has, last time we saw him, he and his wife, they had 2 children. And what happened is that this zone, that the Kelashin, became totally a no-go zone. It's a cut-off land now, because not only because of the bombings, but because of the movement of the armed groups. It became, and because of the Turkish soldiers that invaded as well, people could not go back after all. And we see this happening not only in Kelashin, but also in other places around Iraqi Kurdistan. We left the place with a video as they asked us. We published the video. You can watch the video on our YouTube channel that Alisa will share with you later in the links. I would like to share one more story about the resilience of our partners. And it's about a village its name is Zauka. Zauka is a village of 20 families, which is around 100 people. That is located in the high mountains of Kandil. In September last year, Zauka was bombed by Turkish airplanes, and 2 people were injured in this bombing. So the families they just took whatever they could take from the village, and they ran. They had to leave because it was a question of survival. They moved down the mountain into a valley, and they found a place that is flat, right next to a river. Some people helped them to build a tent, and when CPT arrived, you can see in the photo. When CPT arrived, we saw this. So we saw tents set up, and some school desks, whiteboard in front, and a teacher teaching children from the village. So what happened is that it was the teachers that actually have to go every day to the village to teach. They have an old truck that they use. They said, we cannot stop teaching children. Like, we will do it. We could continue. And they set up a school there and started to teach children there. Actually, while we were there and speaking to children and to the teachers and to the community leaders who were telling us about Zauke and about what happened to them, one of the students, her name is Hani, she asked this question, and she said, do children in the United States, like, do they have to learn also in tents like this? And it was a very, very, very powerful question. There is, I would like to show you Pur Aish, who is one of the family elders as well from the village. She told CPT, and she said, what can we do now? Like, we had to flee our village because we are under threat of the bombing, and the airplanes can come anytime and bomb us. Or if we stay here in this tent, in these tents, we will get flooded very soon, because it was already October. Soon the rains will come, the snow will come, and the whole area will get flooded. The community asked CPT, and they say, what can you do for us? And they told us also that nobody came to see us. Like, nobody from the local government came, no organizations came. So our team went and spoke to the director of education for the region. The director of education said, we need to find a way to support the children, and maybe we can provide a bus for them to go to other schools. Then we met with the mayor of the region as well. And he actually said, I will go and visit the families. And he did. He went, and the family received some basic support that they needed, and better tents as well. Later on, we accompanied one of the teachers and the leader of the village leader to a meeting with the Minister of Finance in Erbil. The Minister of Finance, unfortunately, didn't promise anything, in no way to support the people that have been displaced and the community. And next time when we met with people from Zauke, they were already living in a town, because they could not stay because of the rains. So the community dispersed, and some of the families went to live in some villages around where they had some relatives, and majority of the community ended up in town that is called Kaladze. It's the big town of the region, and they told us, like, it's very difficult for us to live here now. So one thing, we lost the sense of community because we're not together anymore, and the children are traumatized. They, instead of going to class with their friends, they are going to new schools. It's very difficult for them to adapt. They need uniforms. They need things that they didn't need in the village, And as well, for us, it's so difficult because we have to buy food that normally we grow in our village and we would be eating it right now. We need to buy kerosene to heat up the houses because it's very cold. While in the village we had wood to cut and use. And that is a fate of other communities as well, and not only Sidakan. And I would like to invite Mohammed now to share more about what's coming, like from the stories that we are sharing about the impacts and about the resistance of people, and about also the solidarity work that CPT is doing. Mohammed can share with us more about campaign that somehow came from that and that united many of the people that we talk about.
Thank you so much, Lucas. So as Lucas mentioned, there are many stories we have, and also we have many partners, but because of the time, this is enough for now. So hopefully for the future, we will tell you more. Actually, one of the outcome of the partnership we do with our partners, with the villagers, is a campaign, which is its name Hear Us Now, Stop the Bombing. And this campaign we started with our partner on August 2019, last year. And so the idea was like the partner wants to come together, unite together, and work together with CPT to be able to make one voice all together, because as we mentioned, like all these stories are happening in different areas of Iraqi Kurdistan, in different villages, mountains, area. So these people, they came together and we declared this campaign. And through the campaign, they had several messages and goals to the Kurdish governments, to the Iraqi governments, to the world. So they want through this campaign, that's their message and their goal to be heard and to be reached. And the main goal is, as it's mentioned in the title, they want the bombing should be stopped. And for example, those armed groups, they should be away from their villages, like to not come close to their villages. So their demands are like they're working on it with us. We are going with our partners to meet with officials. We met several officials. We met some parliamentarians, some lawmakers. And one of the lawmakers said that this is the first time I have been here that these people are coming together and they are advocating for their rights together, because it's very important. Like none of them knew each other before. And all of them, they have one story, are connecting them together. And this is why they are coming together. And this is why CPT is supporting them and accompanying them. And mainly like CPT is, they ask CPT to organize those meetings and those, to arrange them. Thank you, Chris, for showing the picture. So this is the picture of, recently we had the meeting on February 23rd of 2020. So as you see in the picture, these are the families of our partners, and maybe you will recognize some of them. So Khalida Khan, Dunya Rashid's mother, is here with Saman, her son, or Dunya Rashid's brother. And also the teacher is here that Lucas mentioned, and also the four cousins that they also they were in the house that Lucas mentioned about when their house been completely demolished. So yeah, this is our partner, and this is how they are. We are connected with each other and working together, and we are working to end the bombing, and these people needs to live in peace. So actually, like there are many issues happening around that. Like it's not only the bombing. Like even like like when they lose, when their land's been burned, when their animals been killed, like there is no compensation for them. Like even there is no like I remember Dunya Rashid's father said, like at least even Turkey didn't say I'm sorry, like it was a mistake and I'm sorry. Like these things they our people, our partners need to hear, and they need support from the government, from their own government, from the Kurdish government, to negotiate with Turkey, with PKK, to create peace for these people. So that is the main of our campaign. And we also have like some event and actions, activities on the social media regarding the campaign. Yeah, so I don't know what else. Lukasz, do you want to add anything to the campaign?
Yeah, I think that maybe you can also say that you hear about what people directly impacted by the bombings are doing, how CPT works in solidarity, but it's not a work that can end there. It's because Turkey doesn't function in the vacuum. Turkey is a very strong ally of the United States. Even though there are some tensions, but still they are. And Turkey is a member of NATO. The airplanes that are bombing civilians that we talk about are made in the USA. Many of the bombs are made in the USA. Now, Turkey is working with a huge British-based conglomerate of weapon production to create their own fighter jets to be able to bomb.
And Turkey is part of NATO.
Yeah, and many of the weapons come from other European countries as well. So this this struggle of nonviolent resistance and stopping war that continues to go on in Iraqi Kurdistan and in other places actually where Turkey is involved, it needs much more collaboration around the world as well. One of the small things that we would like to invite you that you could take right now after the webinar or later is to sign under a letter that is asking actually the Kurdistan regional government to meet with the villagers, because it's sometimes very difficult for people to reach out and to be heard and to be able to have that meeting. So you could also do that, and there are a few
like our page, go to our website, join us on a delegation, come meet us face to face. Yeah, so invite us to speak with your community and donate through our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed and Lukasz. I'm just going to turn over to some questions now. We've got quite a lot of people asking about tensions between Turkey and Iran and the Kurdish people. I know that's probably a longer answer, but is there some way you can talk more to that and why there are tensions there?
Lukasz, do you want to answer?
I think that there can be many answers and a long conversation about this. How I think we would perceive it is that we are talking about a struggle for power between two very strong political entities, former empires in the region, for control and for power. Turkey and Iran are clashing against each other and against each other proxies in Syria as well. However, there were times when these two, even though on the micro scale, regional scale, they have conflicts or they have tensions, when it connected to oppressing and Kurdish people, they united. And even CPT heard from many partners that there were times when the Turkish airplanes would fly along the border and within 20-30 minutes later, Iran would start shelling. Because Iran does not have permission to fly over the Iraqi airspace, which Turkey does, unfortunately. And so there have been definitely the two countries have been sharing military intelligence when it came to bombing Kurdish people. Also, after in 2017, when Iraqi Kurdistan did a referendum for independence, both Turkey and Iran shut down the borders. Started to pile up the military on the borders as well. yeah, maybe.
And they have,
yeah.
and they have fears to like the Kurdish will unite and declare a state. So both countries, they are against that. Iraq is against that. Syria is against that. They don't want Kurds to have their own states and country.
Thank you for that response. This question is for Mohammed. We have someone asking, so from your experiences of being Kurdish, what made you choose a non-violent path and, for example, not to join the PKK?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. Actually, I experienced or I witnessed a lot of war in my region, like Iran-Iraq war, the Kurdish uprising against Saddam regime, the US invasion in 2003, like a lot. Okay, so all these things, when I see it, when I'm living with it, when I'm growing with it, it makes me feel that there should be another solution. Like sometimes I'm arguing with my nations, with my people. Like I'm saying that we as a Kurds, we are struggling, we are fighting for over 100 years, and still we don't have a state, we don't have a country, we don't have a right. So there should be another way. Try to use it to be able to, like, it's time to live together with those nations around us. We cannot really fight, like always think about fighting, and also like I learned a lot from CPT. Like I'm with CPT over a decade, and that makes me who am I now. And I always wants to live in peace. And yeah, and when you see violence, when you experience violence, it makes me, actually speaking for myself, it makes me to not practice violence anymore. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'm just going to go over to some more questions here. Okay, so people would like to know what is happening on the ground right now, given COVID-19. Are we still able to do the work there?
Mohammed, would you like to answer, or?
Yeah, actually, yeah, sure. So unfortunately, since the pandemic happens, we couldn't really travel to go to see our partners, but still we are in a touch with them, like every month, like 2 times a month or once a month. We are calling them, they are calling us. Like we use our social media. Like this is the only things we could do. Like for example, when we hear there was bombing happening there, sometimes they are sending pictures to us, and then we will share it on the website, make it like a news, like a report about it. In terms of the civil society, like when there is a protest happening, sometimes we go, which is that recently the last 2 weeks, because the restrictions is now much easier than before. Yeah, and we are not meeting at the office, but each of us, we are in our house, and still we are meeting like every week and working for like in a different ways.
Yeah, and I would also add that actually Turkey used the situation together with some parts of the Kurdistan government to expand their war against the PKK, which means that it is actually impacting now the new villages and a number of new villages in two valleys, where the government, some parts of the government build a military base, which is seen that it's very closely connected to Turkey now, and it's in a very strategic place for CPKK. But it is in the very strategic place for between two governorates. It's a main road. There are many villages there, and Turkey already bombed there. Actually, it was in April already. So people there are asking for the military to leave, because it's just bringing war into another valley, another place. Even though this is happening as well.
Thank you for that. And Lukash, maybe could you speak more to, we've got in the question around what gives Turkey the legitimacy to bomb and not Iran. Is there something we can speak to on that?
Yeah, so I mean, as a human rights organization or people believing in peace, we don't believe there is any legitimacy for anyone to bomb. At the same time, if we use international humanitarian law, both governments are breaking that because they are targeting civilians' homes, livelihoods, places of religious importance as well. But Turkey and Iraq historically since Saddam's time have certain agreements on the right of hot pursuit, which means that if there is what they consider terrorist activity, they can cross the border and chase and withdraw back. So there is this kind of agreement between Iraq and Turkey from many years ago. And so that's one thing. However, Turkey invaded, and there are some areas where they stayed, and they just built bases there, and they continue to be there. And actually, these places became off limits for local residents. So we know of at least 30 villages that have been wiped, like destroyed and emptied because of this Turkish invasion. So there is we don't know of any legal basis that would allow this to happen. Besides, also there are some Turkish bases from the 90s that they have this agreement with one Kurdish political party in Iraqi Kurdistan, but it's also it's like this, and we honestly we don't know like how Iraq is allowing the Turkey to fly in its airspace and bomb. Yeah, and we don't know. Maybe Mohammed can say more about it.
It's like there are lots of political interests happening in this area. Like each country, they have their own benefits and their own interests with the neighboring country, with the international community. Like even they were bombing by Turkey while US were in Iraq. Like I remember we made this survey in 2000, I think it was 9. Like we asked people who's responsible for this bombing. And people were saying that Iraq and the US. US is in Iraq, and while it's US letting Turkey to bomb inside Iraq, like there are lots of interest happening. And another point is that the government or the state, for example, in Turkey, they are not nice with the Kurds inside Turkey, but they are nice with the Kurds in Iraq. And which kind of Kurds? Those who are in power, those who are having power, like the Kurdish government. So Turkey having good relations with the Kurdish governments inside Iraq, and because there are lots of business and economy, and they have to make a good connection with the other Kurds in the other country, but they are oppressing their Kurds inside their own country.
Thank you for those explanations. So I'm going to ask each of you, we've got a couple of questions around how has being in these villages and witnessing the effects of the bombings, what has been the effect on you both emotionally? Maybe Lukash, do you want to start, and then Mohammed can speak?
So I think that at the beginning, in my first years in Kurdistan, I went first time in 2009. I felt very small. I felt like we are facing something incredibly huge and something that causes so much pain to so many people and of course death and displacement. It felt very small. It was also very difficult for me to be able to communicate with people outside. So with my family, for example, when I sometimes went to visit them, and I was full of these things that I've been seeing and hearing, and the people that I began to love and also consider as some partners, some as friends. It was I could not really, and my family could see how I was detached, like how I tried, and they tried to hear, listen, but they could not understand. Like I felt like nobody can connect outside of Kurdistan with what I was experiencing and what I learned and how I was changing. Yeah, but then eventually it changed, and I realized that we are working together for something big, and that it is very very powerful and very big what we are building together. So I see much. I see that this is what people can change. Like there's a power of working together from people from different countries and changing what is happening. So I started to feel much more empowered as well, and our relationships became also much more authentic among ourselves with people I knew. And yeah, so it takes time and it's a process.
Yeah, it's for me, like it's very hard, actually. It's very hard when you see people are living in a situations when for example, I'm living in a city. There is no bombing here. Everything is perfect. But when I go to the village, and it's completely different. Like it's like I'm wondering why I, as a person living in a nice city, and there are people living in that conditions, but still, like I'm always like, when I'm working with this organization, with CPT, and I have this connection with those people in the villages, it always give me hope. And when I hear like people are talking about the villagers outside of KRG, there are people coming from abroad to meet us and to join our organization, our team, and to go to see our partners. And these all connections and relationship is building. And all these, when I see all these things, it gives me hope. Like sometimes our partner is saying, even if you cannot do anything, but when we see you, we feel that peace is coming. We feel that at least we are having some chatting together, and we can tell everything what we have in our heart and our emotions, and to share with you. That is enough for us, and that is sometimes give me hope. Like, okay, it's, at least we could do something. At least we can listen to them. Yeah, that is the way it's always motivating me, and keep doing this, and carry all this pain that my people have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mohammed and Lukash. Okay, I think we're going to start to wrap things up here. So I just want to thank everyone who's joined us today. We have got the links in the chat box, but we'll also be sending out more information where you can access those links on how to join us on the Hear Us Now Stop the Bombing campaign, the links to CPT Iraqi Kurdistan Facebook page as well, and their website. So as I mentioned, we've got some questions that we didn't get to today, but we are going to dedicate ourselves to answering those in the coming days. So we really appreciate all the questions you've got. And once again, thank you so much for being here. There will be a recording of this webinar that you can access, and we'll be sending that link out also. I'm just going to let Mohammed, Lukash, and Chris also say goodbye to you all.
Thank you all. Thank you for watching us. It's very nice. Even we didn't see you, but you could see us. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. I just saw many other questions. We will send answers for them by email.
Thank you so much for being here and for all of your support.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you. See you next time.